Hi, my name is Taufik Okoya, CEO of Fico Solutions Limited, the creators of Queens of Africa dolls. The focus of the Queens of Africa dolls includes, but not limited to, the Millennium Goals 2 and 3. Our concept is such that once you're able to create that sort of sense of value, in an individual, they become more confident, more, they believe more in themselves, they're more driven, and so with that, we thought, this would lead to a better impact or growth, even in terms of the economy. For the greater part of it, we more or less want a situation where the African child, especially the girl child, has that confidence, that drive and appreciation of herself. I'm not saying that, Western values are bad or should not be embraced, but there should be a healthy mix. So we are more of, it's a broad spectrum, and I believe that this has an impact beyond just, the trade, the sales, the impact on the economy, but on the individual. I see myself more as a social entrepreneur, simply for the fact that my definition of success when I started my company is not so much about how much money we make as a company per se, but how many lives we're able to reach and touch and impact positively. So with most of my work, I always want it to have some kind of, benefit or impact beyond or besides the financial gains of it. My strong belief is that for the project to be successful and achieve the impact that we want it to, it has to be able to sustain itself. As much as we're looking at making that, social cultural change, or, create that awareness of the importance of having toys in your own likeness, or that would, at the end of the day, improve, self-esteem. It sounds a bit far-fetched, but we cannot undermine the fact that, what children are exposed to in terms of play tools impacts them psychologically in the long run. There's so many subliminal messages that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Abroad, you find out that when a child has been traumatized, and you have children psychologists, the way they get to begin to understand the mind of the child is either by giving them a pen and some crayons to create like paintings and drawings, and really from there they can tell if the child is from a dysfunctional family or not. The same way they can give them dolls to role play with, and you can be there observing your children as they role play with dolls, and you can begin to see the impact of the things that they've subliminally taken on board. So we look to see that the doll culture, especially maybe in Nigeria, was not so high, because I think dolls were seen as an elitist sort of toy, and the low-income earner or children of low-income earners, probably didn't have. It was more like a luxury for them, and the kind of dolls they got to play with were not of that sort of quality. But for us to create that, that doll culture amongst even the low-income earners' children, the dolls had to be affordable. That said, there's still the fact that it's a business that needs to run itself. How we strike the balance is in a situation maybe where we could be making like 100% and doing lower volumes. We'll rather do like a less percentage in terms of profit and do higher volumes, because the higher the volume, the more the people the message is getting into, and the more people you are impacting. So it has that ripple effect. So for us, it will continue to be a social, cultural sort of business. because of the fact that we were not too sure about the volumes we're going to be doing, being a new market, and I was very conscious about the price point, we decided to, I made the molds, designed the dolls, but had the parts made in China. And then we brought in the parts in pieces and we assembled them here. We clothe them here, we get the hair braided and styled here locally. So the foreign part are the actual molded plastic itself, and then the local part, when we now do the finishing and making of the clothes and so on, that was the way we could actually keep the price down. Although in future, if we have now established, distribution, solid distribution network, we plan to actually have our machineries here and produce 100% locally. We get we do have our peak months, we have our not so good months. Our permanent staff, we have 15 permanent staff, and but when we do have large orders, that figure could go up to as high as 50, because we usually get swamped. And so, but what we now do also is that the months that we keep basic production, and then when we need to actually now give it a jump, we bring in some temporary staff, casual staff, to finish the processing and package. The interesting thing with the project so far is the fact that we started about 6 years ago. When we first started, it was slow and we did not get that much of our acceptance, from the children, from the market. So I'd taken a break from marketing to actually, embark on an educational sort of campaign, talking about the benefits and importance of having black dolls. And we did that for another 2 or 3 years. Now, what has happened is, since last year, we've gained acceptance, and there was a greater jump in terms of our demands. Even locally, which we now started working on how to begin to cater for the local market. And in the past few months, we've had even a greater blow up in terms of demand from, international markets. Our plan initially was to now start planning for export towards the later part of this year, but our plan seems to have been fast tracked. So we have had to double up on our production, and we're working on how to increase have a more effective production output. At present, we do roughly between 100 and 150 units of the dolls a day. Our sales it fluctuates. January till date has not been so great because, but usually we find out that the festive seasons actually, creates a great jump in demands of our products, and I think that's simply because of people having parties, giving out gifts, and so on. So around during our really good months, we do, because we have 2 ranges. We have the Queens of Africa range, we have the Niger Princesses range. Queens of Africa is more like the premium brand, while Niger Princesses caters more for the mass market. So we end up doing sometimes greater volumes in the Niger Princesses, which can range between 3,000 to 4,000 during the good months, and the Queens of Africa also about the same quantity. So we are looking at having to increase our production, because if we're now looking at not just Nigerian market, the African market and the international market, those quantities that we're doing in terms of production daily will definitely not suffice. So we're working on it now to increase our production outputs daily. We do have plans for growth and expansion, not just in Nigeria, Africa, but the world, in the world, as a whole. Already, the project is tagged Queens of Africa. We started with the Nigerian dolls, with the Nigerian series. And even in Nigeria, we do have more than 3, tribes. But what we've done is just focus on the 3 major tribes initially. We are working on actually having a, Queens of Africa doll created of, the main ethnic tribe or group in the different African countries. Then also we're looking at getting expansion into the markets, the international market, because we know that there are quite a number of Africans in diaspora, and that are looking and longing to have some kind of connection back with home. So we actually do have like books, we have music, we're working on animation series, different avenues or different portals, more like it, of communication to reach, to reach Africans across, all over, across the, world. So yes, we do have a great expansion plan that would cover, the different areas that we find would be of interest to, any child. The famous name, I won't say directly, framed or changed my philosophy or influenced it per se. But what did is the fact that I did work, in the family business, Eleganza Industries, and I started off at a very young age. I worked in the various departments, from sales, marketing, production. I handled admin, human resources. I did research and development, and I operated as an executive director in about 3 of our various companies for a period of just over 10 years. During that, my working in the family business, I was exposed to a lot of business insights from, different parts of the world. Had to travel, and we dealt in mass production. And it's almost the same sort of philosophy or, idea behind the Queens of Africa too, where we took luxurious or so-called luxurious product items, made them locally and made them affordable, so they became more like, household products. And we're talking about things like the coolers, the biros, we had flasks, we did fans, and these products were products that were imported into Nigeria majorly, and because of maybe the size of the volume or the cost of the product itself, turned out to be quite expensive. So that also gave me a great understanding of the Nigerian market, because we had distributors and and end users from all over Nigeria, so it was a good experience, good exposure, and in a direct way, my exposure in the eleganza industry actually had a great influence in terms of my business thinking.